I have always heard rumors about Hollywood claiming that US government agencies like the CIA, FBI, NSA, and others somehow manipulated narratives and spread propaganda through cinema. This time, we're going to investigate seriously and understand how it really works. We'll look at real movies that were released in theaters, how they were linked to these agencies, what's the process, what did they change, and also why it will continue to happen. Believe me, it's not like what they told you. Let's begin. Black Hawk Down. This is a movie based on real events that shows what happened during a military raid called the Battle of Mogadishu to capture two guerrillas loyal to the self-proclaimed dictator Mohammed Farhat Aidid during the Somali Civil War. The operation was controversial due to its results. The movie is based on a book which, with declassified documents, official interviews, and precise details of the events, recounts the story minute by minute. The director and producer of the movie wanted authenticity and access to locations, equipment, and military advisors. This is where the Department of Defense, also known as the Pentagon, comes in. So, a controversial operation from an objective standpoint would have raised questions about the US government, the Clinton administration, and the United Nations, which also intervened in the operation. But the movie takes a different perspective from the book, focusing much more on humanizing the soldiers who participated, while sidelining geopolitical details, foreign policy strategies, and peace negotiations associated with the raid. By portraying the event from that viewpoint, the movie secured the Department of Defense support, which allowed them access to training, weapons information, troops, military bases, and equipment used during the operation, including the helicopters that give the movie its name, the famous Black Hawks. We are already seeing the first parameter of collaboration with the US government agencies, the narrative. However, we need to dig deeper, because at first glance it might seem like censorship. But as I said before, the movie wasn't modified. Its producers had already decided to make it that way. However, this collaboration did have a controversial aspect, and it wasn't about the content or narrative. It was due to the Pentagon's request to change the name of one of the operation's most prominent specialists. The reason was that the real-life specialist had been discharged and sentenced to 6 years in prison for abusing his daughter. I think Pentagon's actions were correct, but I suppose everyone will have their own opinion. The movie was acclaimed for its technical realism. It wasn't a commercial failure. And if you like movies with military plots based on real events, I doubt that you won't like this one, though I must warn you that it's quite intense. The agency's involvement in Black Hawk Down was straightforward. Basically, they reviewed the script. This is more normal than it seems. Even private organizations do this. When they were filming the movie The Internship on Google's campus, they also actively participated in the production and script review as part of the agreement to allow filming there. This is a collaboration, and I think it's logical that whether it's a company or government agency, they also try to maintain their reputation. Let's look at the next movie. Independence Day, a science fiction classic about the arrival of a coordinated group of huge alien ships that destroyed Earth's major cities. This leads to an Air Force pilot who defeats an alien, an MIT engineer who deciphers part of a code, and the President of the United States ending up, under different circumstances, gather at Area 51 to plan how to defeat the extraterrestrials. As you can imagine, the movie's production required help from the Department of Defense, primarily for advice on worldwide emergency protocols, as well as locations, official uniforms, and access to filming military equipment, including fighter jets. According to the cooperation guidelines, the Pentagon had to review the script, the production handed it over, and upon receiving it back, they reportedly requested removing reference to the alleged 1947 UFO crash known as the Roswell incident, mentions of Area 51, a place that's always been the subject of extraterrestrial conspiracies. The US president, who was originally an Army draft dodger, had to be a decorated war veteran. And finally, although there was unity among civilians, military personnel, and other nations, the story had to lean toward US military personnel achieving the final victory. The producers, seeing this, decided to partially modify the script but refused to change other things. And by other things, I specifically mean Area 51 and the Roswell incident. This caused the Department of Defense to decline collaboration. So they had to use computer-generated images, stock footage, and recreated sets for filming in government offices, including those of Area 51, of course. An essential part of the movie is Area 51, so it makes sense that the producers refused to modify that part. You can also see that some of the changes suggested by the Pentagon did end up in the movie, and I must say it was for the better, since the president's character was very well received by audiences.
We celebrate our Independence Day!
So much that in 2024 the actor was chosen to star in a Budweiser commercial reprising his role as President of the United States, in clear reference to the movie.
We celebrate our Independence Day.
Also, unofficially, it is said that they suggested the final battle take place on July 4th, U.S. Independence Day. As for the movie, it was a monumental success in 1996, the second highest grossing of that year. Totally recommended if you like science fiction.
With this movie, we debunk the first myth. Cooperation with U.S. government agencies is optional. The agencies didn't perform any kind of censorship coercion on any of the producers, directors, or actors involved in the movie. Even the movie was a total success. There is an official document that allows a production company to work with the U.S. Department of Defense in the area of movies and entertainment. It's called Production Assistance Agreement, and it's a contract signed by a TV network, streaming platform, or film studio, and it contains the guidelines they must follow if they want cooperation. We have already seen some of them. 1. They require script review. 2. They must have access to a private screening with Pentagon personnel to approve the final version of the film or series before it's even shown to test audiences. Let's move on to the next movie. This one will excite the conspiracy theories the most.
Animal Farm. This is an animated movie in which farm animals rebel against their human owners and form a new order. However, their new leader, a pig, is not what he seemed, so they must decide again whether to confront him or live under a new tyranny. This movie is from 1954, right in the midst of the Cold War. Here, the CIA intervened to buy the rights to the book and help finance a modified animated version that served as criticism of Stalinism. Now, the process that made this movie possible is worthy of its own story. The CIA, through the Psychological Strategy Board, had an undercover agent at Paramount Studios who convinced a Hollywood producer to buy the rights to the book from the author's widow. They traveled to the UK to convince her. The CIA, through various front organizations, diverted part of the Marshall Plan funds aimed at Europe's recovery after World War II to pay for the book's rights. Surprisingly, the final clause that sealed the deal wasn't money or some spy-worthy strategy. It was simply arranging for the author's widow to meet her favorite actor, Clark Gable, a star of Gone with the Wind. Then, the CIA made another financial move through a front organization, in this case the production company Louis de Rochemont Associated, which received the funds to complete the movie's financing. Unofficially, it is known that this producer had already worked with the FBI to produce the 1945 movie The House on 92nd Street, an anti-Hitler espionage thriller that won an Oscar. That's how the creation of the movie Animal Farm was set in motion, fully produced in the UK with British experts and also Disney company advisors. Part of the movie's goal was to distribute it as educational material, which even reached the United States, parts of Latin America, and of course the UK as an anti-communist message. It was never intended to be commercially successful. The participants, animators, and producers never found out they were working on a CIA-funded movie. In fact, no one knew. It wasn't until 1999 that Frances Stoner Saunders' book revealed this information based on the classified documents. The reviews of the movie were mixed, but it is said that its technical quality is good, almost Disney level. Although labeled as propaganda, the reality is that the original book was already a critique on how the Soviet Union ended up betraying its ideals, punishing and impoverishing its citizens, and enriching an elite. In this case, box office information is not public and is incomplete, so it's up to each person whether they want to watch it and decide for themselves.
This time, the conspiracy theories have a point, but also remember that we're in the midst of the Cold War. No one was forced to make the movie, and I don't think there is anyone who would dare applaud the Soviet Union's actions. The way government has got involved in entertainment has been gradual and has refined over time. Until the mid-1930s, corporations were simple and informal. You just had to praise the institution. From 1942 to 1945, as a result of the World War II, the U.S. Office of War Information was created, which reviewed over 1,600 scripts and was dissolved after the war ended. In the 1948, the Pentagon created the Entertainment Media Office, where they began creating more concrete guidelines. Starting in the 1950s, clear cooperation contracts and procedures were established through the DoDI Instruction Number 5410.16, which so far has 27 pages. As for the CIA, this is an independent intelligence agency that operates mainly abroad, which is exactly what we saw happen. Let's move to the next movie.
Transformers. This is a franchise that's an adaptation of a set of toys and cartoons about two factions of an alien robot race that arrive on Earth after their planet's destruction, and their relationship with some humans who know of their existence. Although there have been several movies, we'll mainly focus on the first three. You'll see why. This collaboration with the US government is the most documented thanks to the Freedom of Information Act, which provided access to classified documents. The Department of Defense support was enormous, including military personnel and equipment. To give you an idea, let's see which agencies participated. The U.S. Army, the main branch of the armed force responsible for ground combat operations, includes the National Guard and reserves. The U.S. Air Force, responsible for air war and defense, military space operations, and global reconnaissance. The U.S. Marine Corps, responsible for amphibious operations, advanced naval defense, diplomatic protection, and operation of the presidential helicopter. They were given access to film at locations like Hoover Dam, military bases as remote as the White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico, and even Pentagon facilities, something that hadn't happened since 9/11. For the second movie, the producers end up paying the Department of Defense about $2 million for the services provided, which is a ridiculously low amount for the personnel and equipment they got. It is not known why the Pentagon trusted that production and director Michael Bay so much, to the point that the agreement was signed before the final script was even finished. We saw why that's relevant. As the movie franchise progressed, collaboration decreased. First, because the branches begin disputing who appeared more in the movie. And for example, the Marines weren't happy that the Army and Air Force appeared more than them, so they declined to land a helicopter which has moving parts like the Transformers. Finally, cooperation stopped with the fourth movie because by then production had Chinese investment capital, and that was a definitive no for the Pentagon. As for the movies, the first three were super successful. Totally recommended if you like science fiction, cars, and good special effects. And if you feel like enlisting in the army after watching them, it's not my fault.
I said at the beginning of the video that we'll see why these collaborations will continue to happen, and it's due to math. Let's look at an example with the second Transformers movie. This is the list of all the support the production received from the Pentagon, and for all that they paid an estimated of $2 million. The cost of just one F-22 Raptor is $143 million, and the Boeing B-1B is about $218 million. Basically, the production only has to pay for transportation, fuel, and logistics. And with the movie $200 million budget, all that was barely 1% of the cost. I think I don't need to say more. It's a great deal. Well, this is how this first part ends. I hope I've replaced conspiracy theories with real knowledge and shown that it's a well-documented process to work with US government agencies.
No man in black. I think
There's a lot more information to share and more movies to review, which we'll see in the second part. Give it a like if you like it. Also, if you're waiting for the second part, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. And if you know a conspiracy theories, share this video so they come and write in the comments, Deep State cover-up. Thanks for sticking around until the end. I'm Rash, and I'll see you in the next re.mental video.